Rocky 3 is the first 80s Rocky movie, and God, does it feel like it. First one, love. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I loved it when I was growing up. I still love it now. Absolutely love it. Second one, hugely underrated. I really do think it's nearly as good as the first film. What are your thoughts on 2? Because you were here for Rocky 1.
I was not here for the second one. 2 maintains the same quality as a sequel. It literally just feels like a carryover from 1.
And it wasn't even directed by the same person. It was directed by Stallone. The second one was directed by Stallone, whereas the first one wasn't.
But the first one was written by Stallone.
The first one was written by Stallone, so was the second one. Which is why I find 3 so weird, because Stallone also wrote and directed this movie like he did the second one, but it feels almost completely different.
Like a not an abandonment, but it might be similar to like the way that his journey goes in the story. The direction of it has to kind of adapt to that because you're not starting from zero anymore.
Now here's the thing. Here's the reason why I brought you on here. You say 3 is your favorite.
Because Mr. T is awesome.
And that's the big reason?
I mean, and Hulk Hogan is awesome.
And that's the big reason?
No, it's also just, well, what happens to the underdog when he's no longer an underdog, like a real underdog?
I do see what you're getting at. Like, okay, this is what happens when the underdog has reached mainstream status.
Now he's top dog. What does it mean now that he's top dog? Does it mean he's truly top dog, or will some big contender come in? Will the cycle repeat where a new underdog comes in and questions, did you really come up from nothing? It seems like you had a hell of a support system.
And that is like one of the things that I do like most about Rocky 3. You definitely see a huge change in just the first scene when we see Stallone interact with Paulie, and Paulie is like actively calling him out, like, you have all of this and you haven't given me like any money, you haven't given me like a single like handout or anything like that. And you just see just how sophisticated Rocky is. You just see how more eloquent he is.
His accent's kind of dropped. His mannerisms are very like ready for screen. His posture when he's like talking in front of a crowd or a camera, he's built his personality. He's structured a front that he puts in front of everyone.
Yeah, and it really does like go to show like Sylvester Stallone's range as an actor, that he can go from this pretty much dope in the first 2 movies to this extremely sophisticated person in the third one.
It's hard to remember that he is acting when we see how good he can perform something, to where we are baffled that, oh, what? He would never say this. We're blown away by the fact that he can portray what happens after, not just a monolith of a personality he's written.
The second reason why I brought you on here, besides the fact that Rocky 3 is your favorite, is because with the exception of one other Rocky movie, and we will get into that Rocky movie later on, but Rocky 3 might be my least favorite with the exception of another one.
Understandable, because it questions everything that you might have liked about the first 2.
I can't help but feel like a lot of the movie is very rushed. This is only an hour and a half. This is only an hour and a half long, where the first 2 were 2 hours long, and it does feel like that. Like in the first 2, I would honestly clarify that Rocky is always best when it's a romance. And it never really feels like there's a true love story in this film. Maybe in the first half with Rocky and Mickey, that father and son relationship, but when Mickey dies, it just sort of just stops, and it just feels very hollow, which understandable because Rocky is going through this very rough patch where he's in mourning, but he still has to get ready for this fight with Clubber Lang. But still, it just feels both rushed and slow at the same time. It feels soulless almost. And that's one of the things that I never really liked about this movie.
Almost like the constructs of his success are soulless. The thing that gave him the most life was his relationships that he built up along the way. But losing the relationships he built up along the way is the reason that once he loses that core, that foundation that helped him, everything around him is just noise. It's just screens. It's just posters.
But at the same time, like one of the relationships that has been with Rocky throughout just all of the movies and is still there and is still strong, supposed to be strong in this film, is his relationship with Adrian. And his relationship with Adrian in this film is completely glossed over, which I never liked. Even in the fourth movie, even in the next movie, his relationship with Adrian is a spotlight. It is one of the big plot points of the film, and that's why, in my opinion, we'll get into Rocky IV later on, but I prefer Rocky IV much more to Rocky III. I think Talia Shire in the first two movies really proved herself as Adrian, and I think that she proved that she can carry just a scene on her own, even when she's saying nothing, and considering the fact that she's pretty much sidelined in this entire movie, I can't help but feel slighted by that.
So you feel more offended that they didn't include her character to portray the fact that his relationship with her might be losing its structure also, and that's something he would have to address.
100% yes.
Yeah, I that makes more sense.
And then another one of my biggest problems with Rocky III, and we'll get into my problems with Rocky III, and then we'll get into the things that I absolutely love about Rocky III, because there's a lot that I love about this movie, and that is Clubber Lang. I think that he might be the worst Rocky villain. My big thing with him is that with Apollo, and we'll get into Rocky Balboa's villain, but with them, there was humanity to them. You could see them as very three-dimensional people, and you could see, like, a person rooting for them just as much as you could see a person rooting against them. And with
I know what you're going to say for Clubber Lang.
And with
he's two-dimensional because you don't see him go from someone who struggles just like Rocky to someone who loses his humanity and becomes a villain for that reason.
Something like that, but with Ivan Drago even, like, he doesn't have a lot of humanity to him, but he is supposed to be this icon, and he doesn't say anything, so when he does say something, it sticks with you, because that imposing presence that he just presents himself, and whenever he speaks, it always comes off, like, as the most intimidating thing possible. With Clubber Lang, he just gives off the impression that he is so much bark and quite a bit of bite, but God, that bark is annoying.
Just not substantiated by his bite?
Not at all. Especially the fact that in the final fight of this movie, whereas all the other Rocky movies that take place in the boxing ring, Rocky has to go the distance with everyone. The fact that Rocky in this movie only has 3 rounds with Clubber Lang, and then he wins against Clubber Lang, really does sell just how underwhelming of a villain Clubber Lang truly is.
The fact that he did not have to go the distance?
Correct.
Didn't he lose in Rocky 1?
He lost in Rocky 1, but he went the distance. That was his main goal. He went the distance with Apollo in Rocky 2, and he won just by a smidge. And even in Rocky 4...
So you wish there would be
There's no struggle. There's no, like, struggle in the ring in that final fight for me.
Doesn't that just add to the uniqueness of Rocky's success, because Clubber Lang almost did the exact same thing and lose his first big fight against
Uniqueness and tension are two very different things. And yes, it is unique in terms of the Rocky franchise, but in terms of tension, there is practically none.
Wouldn't you say it eliminated the tension in Rocky 1 that he lost his first fight with the successful contract fighter? The way that Rocky was in where Apollo was by the time of Rocky 1 and Rocky 3.
No, the tension was always there, because there was the tension about, okay, was he actually going to distance? Was he going to make the 15 rounds? And there was also, is he actually going to win this? Because they make it very clear in both Rocky 1 and Rocky 2. If that fight lasted for 10 more seconds, Rocky would have won. There was all that tension built up. But in this one, you know exactly what's going to happen.
You could say that for Clubber Lang's fight then. If he just...
In the first fight,
what if he had more 10 seconds, he won?
No, there wasn't, because it only lasted 3 rounds. And it didn't feel like there was, like, so much on the line. The whole thing was that Rocky is going into retirement after this fight with Clubber Lang. And he fights him twice. And that's the same end goal with both fights. Go into retirement after them. We see, like, bits and pieces of Clubber Lang's personal life. We see, like, him training in his apartment for 2 different clips. We see him, like, running through the streets. And in the first montage, we see him go through contender after contender after contender until he's the #1 contender. And then we see his rage when Rocky is about to retire. And I would have thought that would have hit more if we just knew him a bit more. I feel like the 2 things that needed to happen in this movie for me to, like, think that it was even on par with the second movie was a bit more development in some way, shape, or form with Clubber Lang, and a bit more development in some way, shape, or form with Adrian. Those were the 2 things that really hold this movie back for me.
So if you think we just saw more depth because he's very flat and two-dimensional.
I think
you just wish we saw more of him so that we could be motivated to think that he actually had more of a chance and wasn't just barking and barking.
I think Clubber Lang could have had the potential to be a very entertaining villain. Mr. T is extremely entertaining, but the fact that his character is so wooden, so he has to rely so much on his performance and so much on his bark, just makes him a very annoying villain.
Not intimidating?
Not intimidating, just annoying.
Makes sense. Okay.
There is a lot of pointless moments in the movie, especially in the first third. Everything with Paulie after the first montage of the movie where he's arguing with Rocky and it just culminates in him asking Rocky for a job. And that's it. It didn't need to really be there, with the exception of the fact that you need to see Rocky, how much he's grown, which the whole montage in the first beginning of the movie has shown that. It's shown how much he's grown. You don't need that. The whole fight with Hulk Hogan, pointless. With that said, that is probably the point in the movie that I have rewatched the most. Because one, it is a really interesting idea for even just for a real life fight. But the fact that you have Hulk Hogan against Sylvester Stallone and Rocky just treating it like a joke, and Thunder Lips, as he's called in the movie, just wailing on him, is the funniest thing ever. And then he gets to the point where Thunder Lips has him in his grasp and he's about to throw him over the ring, and Rocky just says, "Adrian, catch me!" Not only is like that bit entertaining, but even just the dramatic things, because I said like my piece with the things with Adrian not being the best dramatically, but everything with Mickey in this movie is handled perfectly. The fact that yes, throughout the first half of the movie, you do see like bits and bits of Mickey's failing health and how much he cares for Rocky and how much he doesn't want Rocky to take the fight because he knows Clubber will kill him, because he knows Rocky's never had a serious fight since Apollo. And even after the fight happens, and even after Rocky loses and Mickey's on his deathbed, Mickey is just clueless about Rocky because Rocky's being completely out of context with the fight. He just said the fight was only 3 rounds, but the smile on Mickey's face that makes him think it was only 3 rounds and Rocky won, even though that's not the truth. It's probably the best scene in the movie. It's, technically speaking, the objectively best scene in the movie, because
the same way one of the best scenes in Rocky, possibly the best scene in Rocky 1 has to be the silent down the street. Like, between him and it's unbeatable.
Exactly.
Because some of those scenes, they don't need dialogue.
And another one of my favorite bits, probably my favorite bit in the 80s arc of Rocky, is the friendship between Rocky and Apollo. And that all started here. Because in the first film, Rocky and Apollo were mainly just bully and underdog. Apollo was never really an outright bully, but he was teasing him. He knew that. He
was under contract and he was having fun with it.
Yeah, but in the second movie, Apollo was on a mission to beat Rocky, to prove he was the best. And now that ego has been stripped away from Apollo, and he's seen that Rocky wasn't fighting at his best, he sees that, no, you have to take the fight again.
He was humbled.
You need to know that what you did against me was light years beyond what was in that fight against Clubber the first time. Eye of the tiger, man. Eye of the tiger. He keeps repeating that, and I love it. All of this just bromance energy culminates. I'm going to keep that in.
Keep it in.
I'm going to keep that in.
Keep it in.
All of this bromance energy throughout the movie culminates in after Rocky wins the fight with Clubber Lang, and Rocky and Apollo just go into the ring sparring with each other to see once and for all who is the better fighter. And it's some of the it's some of the most fun dialogue in the series. Rocky's just in the ring jumping and he's like, "One hit the bell," and Apollo's like, "All right, ding, ding."
The paw glove that he does it. Like ding, ding.
I spoke about this on my collaboration with Cobra Kai Karate. You can check him out in the link down below. I really do hope that for the last season of Cobra Kai, they do something like that, because that is stupid and genius in the exact same way.
The same way Rocky fighting Hulk Hogan's character
is stupid.
Stupid, but we are gonna love it. We are
entertaining.
gonna love it, yeah.
And then lastly, let's talk about the music.
Eye of the Tiger.
Eye of the Tiger.
Come on.
This movie birthed the Eye of the Tiger. This movie birthed
and raised.
It birthed and raised what is, in my opinion, the best blooper in all of Supernatural. If you don't know what that is, I will link it.
Just link a clip.
I will link it in one of the corners. One of them. Is it that one? Is it that one?
No, it's that one. You were right the first time.
Is that one? Yeah. Oh my God, Eye of the Tiger is one of the best. It's up there with the original, with the Rocky theme, the original Rocky theme in terms of workout songs.
If you don't think you can push that amount of weight in your day of I'm gonna get hypertrophy, just play it full max over ear speakers, not earbuds. Do not listen to Eye of the Tiger in earbuds.
No. You need to have that full on, just
isolate yourself,
pounding at your ears.
Don't push, don't rush. Just Eye of the Tiger is the thrill, and then boom, it's all up. It's just all up.
There are a couple songs in Rocky IV that contend,
mm-hmm.
but I do think definitely in terms of just iconicness.
The only thing,
Eye of the Tiger, man.
The only thing franchise-wise that really holds it for me is the ground sledge, the sledge digging in Creed 2.
In Creed 2,
yeah.
Creed 2 has a great workout soundtrack.
Agonizing, tired, muddling through.
Yeah,
I forget what the song is, but I need to look that up because that versus Eye of the Tiger, that is contention for me.
Yeah,
a lot of things from Creed will contend with Rocky for me.
Absolutely,
just by time. I'm sorry.
Absolutely,
but they won't be contended as classic yet.
Overall, what are your thoughts on Rocky 3? Sum it up. Okay, you understand some of the criticism, but
I totally understand
what makes it your favorite?
By the fact that I feel like I can remember every beat of it. I think it just stuck with me the longest, besides Rocky 1, obviously. Rocky 1 stuck to me as an idea for the longest. Rocky 3, I think for the longest time, I could actually name everything that happened in it. Names, places, events, moments, besides a lot of stuff from Rocky 1. I need to rewatch Rocky 4, though, just to see how wrong I might be. A lot of stuff from Creed 1 and 2, I'm thinking how much more rhythmic it is with Rocky 1. Mm-hmm. Creed 2 was rhythmic with Rocky 1 again, really. But they're more rhythmic with Rocky 4, obviously, but I think it's complicated. The way that I like it, I just don't call things favorites, because I don't want them to be stagnant, 1 is one thing, 2 is one thing. I prefer tier listing for it. And
okay.
Not really anything would be in D tier for that. I prefer tier lists because 2 things can be equally good,
I understand that. Yeah, I do get that.
Yeah. So for me, it's not my favorite. It would probably just share a tier list with a couple others. It's complicated. I don't like to solidify most of my opinions as monoliths.
Honestly, I would say that's more or less my same overall thoughts when it comes to this movie. It is very complicated.
You have complicated feelings towards it.
Because there's a lot that I really do love. I do love the relationship with Rocky and Apollo. I think the relationship with Rocky and Mickey is some of the best in any of the movies. I love the soundtrack. I do think there is a lot to really just watch and enjoy. It's definitely one of the most purely entertaining Rocky movies for sure. Mm-hmm. But in terms of both the relationship, especially with Adrian, in terms of Clubber Lang, and just in terms of...
It ditches its core fundamentals.
Just how rushed I feel it is. Mm-hmm. I just can't get into it. If it's on cable... and it's literally the only Rocky movie on, then of course I'm going to watch it. Mm-hmm. But it might be my second to least favorite of the bunch. But with that said, I still do enjoy it, so overall, I'm going to give Rocky 3 a B. I don't think it's a bad movie, I just think comparing it to, especially to the previous 2, it's nowhere near as good.
Because it might not be a fair comparison, because it's not the same story. It's a different point in time.
Yeah.
It's for its reasons. It's not really to be excused. Yeah. I think there's reasons for it.
And apparently, on Rotten Tomatoes, this is pretty much the exact same thought everyone has on this movie. It has a 67% critic score and a 77% audience score.
Makes sense.
Everyone has a different opinion about it. Mm-hmm. So with that said, Guys, let me know in the comments down below. What are your thoughts on Rocky 3? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you think it's just good? Do you think it's just bad? Or do you think it's just eh? Because I'm nearing good and eh.
I'm not good, and I wouldn't put it anywhere below, or near bad.
Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are the best. And don't forget to click subscribe and click the bell icon down below to stay up to date on all things movie,
all things TV,
all things nerd.